So tonight we are talking about entrepreneurship, and I am an entrepreneur. And I just got back from the Middle East, and I had the opportunity to go to the United Arab Emirates, to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And then I went over to Saudi Arabia, to Jeddah. Has anyone been in that part of the world at all? Not many. And it was a very eye-opening experience for me. I was there for business, and I had the opportunity to meet with an entrepreneur, a young woman who was sacrificing literally her own life to try to create opportunity for others by creating a business incubator. See, we take that concept a little bit for granted here in the United States. We come into something like the Innovation Pavilion here, but in other countries, that's not the norm. And to be a young woman starting such an enterprise in a place like Saudi Arabia, well, that's just bucking the trend. And literally, she's had issues trying to launch this business and to keep it thriving. And you think that we have issues with government regulation. They have a whole different deal over there. You have societal regulation, the norm that's trying to keep people in certain places. And I hope to host her here so that she can learn from people like Vic and others, so she can take that back home to Saudi Arabia and create flourishing opportunity for many young men and women. So what do we mean when we talk about this thing called entrepreneurship? There was a great quote from Peter Thiel. He's the co-founder of PayPal, an early investor in Facebook, and a hedge fund manager. Just last year, he wrote a book, 0 to 1, Notes on Startups or How to Build the Future, where he led with this observation. The next Bill Gates will not build an operating system. The next Larry Page or Sergey Brin won't make a search engine. And the next Mark Zuckerberg won't create a social network. If you are copying these guys, you aren't learning from them. Let that soak in for a minute. If you're just copying these guys, you're not really learning from them. The goal of good entrepreneurism isn't to copy the methods and ideas of others and expect success, but to create something new, enter a new space, explore uncharted territory. Yes, I'm a Trekkie, so I had to put that in there, so sorry. Who's with me on the Trekkie side? Yeah, come on. I'm there with Captain Kirk. Okay. And there'll never be another new Facebook. Thiel concluded in his book that the most contrarian thing of all is not to oppose the crowd, but to think for yourself. Entrepreneurship rarely, if ever, is about being opposed, negative, against, or anti. Entrepreneurship is inherently about solutions, positive vision, and forward thinking. Those on our panel today didn't get where they are by simply opposing the crowd, but by thinking for themselves, by seeing a need and meeting it. This evening, may we be inspired by these leaders to not merely oppose the crowd, not merely to try to create a carbon copy, but to use our unique gifts and talents to create something new, to think for ourselves. Through thinking for ourselves, we can end up serving others and building the future together, and a brighter future at that. Let me share some statistics, though, on entrepreneurship. A lot of us know that it isn't easy. On average, 25% of startups fail in the first year, 36% by year 2, and 44% by year 3. However, as an entrepreneur, I would submit that if anyone tries to start a new business or venture, no matter what that looks like, they truly never fail because they went out and they tried. The average age of an entrepreneur starting their first company, I found this one very interesting, is 40 years old. We think of entrepreneurs as young people who have nothing to lose and no mortgage payment to pay. And by golly, it's probably someone in their 40s who has some kids, has responsibilities, but is going out in spite of all that to create a positive change. Here's an interesting statistic. Only 4.5% of entrepreneurs said the inability to find traditional employment was an important factor in starting the business. For those that say you became an entrepreneur because no one else would employ you, well, maybe that's not so. More than 90% of the entrepreneurs came from middle class or upper lower class background. Entrepreneurship tends to be serial. Average entrepreneur starts or is involved with 2.5 different businesses. Maybe because those statistics about failure, but we're not going to go into that. 74.8% of entrepreneurs indicate a desire to build wealth as an important motivation for becoming an entrepreneur. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but in the June 4th article of the Denver Business Journal, it was entitled, Innovations Abound. Colorado, we ranked 4th in entrepreneurship around the country. That's up from number 7 just the year before. We are a hotbed of entrepreneurship. 350 out of every 100,000 adults in Colorado are becoming entrepreneurs per month. Let that sink in for a minute. 350, now again, I didn't write the article, and that's why I quoted it, because if the number's wrong, I don't want to take responsibility for it. But it did say 350 out of every 100,000 adults are becoming entrepreneurs each month in Colorado. That's amazing. You see, I truly believe that in our state, we have the brain trust, we have the talent, we have the resources, not only to create the next Facebook, but to create the next great nonprofit, to create the next great company, to build houses in the developing world. And I believe that some of those people are in this room with us tonight.